You may see here the Apollo riding the horses. This is a familiar scene on the gate in Germany, in Berlin. You will find this kind of same scene that is there. These are some of the early cultures that was happening. But this is a different temple, but it was the same ideal. As Rome began to take shape, and the Etruscans, they've grown, and now Rome just to the south, they're beginning to develop. And they're looking to try to expand and encompass all these people, and they're trying to organize a political system and get all of the people together because they need the resources. They need their areas of land and where they have found these specific minerals and these metals and these resources of food. All of this is important. And the Romans are really the ones that really start organizing. And as they begin to organize, they notice, and this is important, and this is the reason I'm teaching it, because here's where the parallels come in. But they notice that with all of these other gods that they have, all of these ancestral gods, all of these beliefs that all of these villages have their own gods. In order for Rome to bring them together, in order for Rome to have this great political strength or empire in its early stages, and as they want to develop it more, they have to somehow pull together all of these religious beliefs. And they have to get all of these different ideals of these different gods together. And their solution was that you can have your God. You can believe in your God. You can have your ancestral God. It's okay for you to have your ancestral God. That's all fine. That's all completely fine. If you got 2 gods, why not have 3 gods? If you've got 4 gods, why not have 8 gods? It's okay. You can have as many gods as you want. But in order to get people to come to Rome, they said, yes, there's all of those gods, but yet there is one God that's bigger than the rest. And so they developed the one that was mainly based off the planet, the largest planet that they knew at the time, which is Jupiter. And they organized what was known as the Capitoline Triad. And on Capitoline Hill, which later becomes a very important hill in Rome, they set up a temple. And this is an outlay of that temple. And they set up what is known as not just one God, it was really a triad of gods. There were 3 gods. And the top of these gods was Jupiter. He was the main god. He's the biggest. He's the largest. He's the most supreme. And then next to him was his wife, which was Juno. She's the one next to him. And then they have a daughter, and the daughter is Minerva. She's one that has great wisdom and knowledge. And so now we've got this Capitoline Triad, and they build this temple that way. And if you notice in the back, it's just similar like the Etruscans. They have the pillars or the porch out front. They have all of the emblems up on top. They again have the riding horses and the god of like Apollo, but on the inside they have 3 what is known as Celes, Jupiter in the middle, and then Juno and Minerva on either side. And this is a supreme god. And this was a political move. It was all it was a political move in order to gain this influence over all of this region of the Etruscans, and that they might be able to pull them in. Yes, you can have your gods, and yes, you can have your worship, and there's one supreme God in Rome, and this is why you need to come to Rome. You can have your gods, you can even bring your gods with you, but there's just one big, large God, and we'll all worship this God. And this political move works, and people start pulling together. And if you notice that when they started trying to pull people together, they had to unify the religion. They had to unify their faiths and their beliefs and what they believed in. And the only way they could do that, because of all the different ideals, was to say that everybody's right. Everybody's okay. Everybody's God is fine. Everybody's God is all right. You can have whatever God you want. And if you look at parallels. And then this is what I look at, because I believe that history repeats itself. I'm a firm believer of what Solomon said when he said that there's nothing new under the sun or moon. What has been will be. It constantly moves in a cycle. It repeats itself because human people are human people. Their minds work still the same way. And I see this very same thing happening right here in America. We've seen it in not only happening in America, it's happened in almost every great empire that has become successful. They have always had to find an answer for all of these different gods and all of these different beliefs and all of these different religions. And this is where we are today, as a great melting pot of all the different cultures and all the different beliefs and all these different religions that are really coming into the United States of America. Now the viewpoint, the political thing to try to gain the prestige and to be able to gain success is all about saying you can have your gods, you can have your belief, and we'll have ours. We can just all get along. There's one God, okay, there's two gods, okay, there's five gods. Do you see the parallel? And this was what Rome was doing. Rome was doing the same thing, and they developed this, and it takes off. I mean, it really takes off. This temple here found in Rome in the early 6th century, again, you will see the roof, and you see the pronos along the front, and the tiled roof, and in the back, the cell and the figurines upon the top, or the acroteria upon the top. But then they add something else. And now the next holy site is in the middle. This is the pediment. And they leave a space inside of this, and they start putting in these different figurines. Anyone that has seen some of the Greek temples, you would notice all of these different figures or these sculptures or sculptings that they have inside of this. They all represent some type of deity or some type of spirit or something that watches over them. And this is what they developed. This was known as the Temple of Fortuna. It was down by the Tiber River, and the ideal was it gave them good fortune, the people that would sell and those that would go out and trade, and she was supposed to watch over them for good fortune. And what was so unique was whatever they had need of, they developed a god for it. If we need fortune, then we have a goddess for that. We'll call her Fortuna. She is the goddess of good fortune. You need you got back spasms. Hey, we've got a god for back spasms, and so they would make up a god for that. And in essence, they developed all of these. And throughout Rome, there were all kinds of temples. And those that went with us to Israel, if you recall, when we went into Beit Shean and we went to Caesarea, there was more than just one temple in that city. You had the temple of Dionysus. You had the temple of Jupiter. You had other temples that were established there because they had to please everybody. And this was all about pleasing everybody. And we just want everybody to come in. And the whole idea was all about wealth. It was all about prosperity. It was all about gain. And this was what was happening. As inside of that, this is just showing their goddess. I think one of these is Minerva that they had uncovered there, and the other, I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been Apollo that was also in that region. The next temple that we begin to see, and we see the same thing that is happening here again, is the temple that was known as the Aradella, or literally it was the altar of the queen. This was in Tarquinia. It had the same layout. If you would notice, it has the same layout. In the back, it has the three sections for the three gods. It has the steps up front. It has the porch area in the middle where the priest could come out and watch for the birds and see if the birds fly in the right way. And then they would know whether they have good fortune or not. The other things they do, this sculpture was up in that pediment. You remember that triangular place? They had this up in that pediment was what was there. But what's unique about this sculpture then versus the other sculpture that you saw of Apollo that was just standing kind of stiff is that this one is more lifelike. And what it tells is that it has more Greek art in it. This is known as classical art, a classical period, and it also has a hint of Hellenized art in it. It has a lot of Greek influence that is now beginning to show up in their worship, in their ideal. The Etruscans developed their ancestors, and now the Greeks are beginning to influence them with their beliefs and their designs and what they were doing. In the city of Cosa, there where the red circle is, in Italy, we'll find another temple. This is up on a great hill, and along the corner of this hill, they build a temple, and it outlooks down here is the Tyrrhenian Sea, and it outlooks upon the sea. They build another temple. This is, again, Rome's expansion, and now they're beginning to expand. Now they're beginning to bind together all of these gods and all of these different beliefs. Now they're building their temples a little bigger. Now they're building them a little more grand. This temple itself, the one in the center, is the Capitoline Triad. It is the Juno and Jupiter and Minerva goes in this main one. All from now on in these Roman areas in villages and towns that they're starting, and colonies they're starting to set up, is now they'll have this temple in every colony. Wherever they would expand would have this temple. But if you notice, there's a temple here and there's a temple here, because these two temples are other people around Cosa. They have their gods too. They have the temples. So this whole area is known as a holy place to them. It is a sacred place because they've got several temples. But the main one is Jupiter and Juno and Minerva. Again, now you're beginning to see the development of this pediment and all these different emblems. You've got horses. You've got those that are carrying things. You've got literally Nike. You see the wing looks like an angel that is flying. It is the Greek Nike, where we get the term Nike on the Nike shoe. And the wing that's upon it looks like the swoosh on the Nike shoe. That's where it comes from. Literally, when you wear Nikes, you're wearing shoes to a Greek god. Didn't know that, did you? Amen. I didn't either, but now I know. I don't have no Nikes on. Good deal. Amen. But all of these were like ancestral gods, and these were known to watch over them. Again, it has on the inside of it, you have the three areas for all the different gods. You've got the area out front to go and look for the different omens that they could look for. You have the intricate details and the design, and here you have the Etruscans influence now in this area. You've got all of these antefixes. You've got all of these plaques, and it's becoming more highly decorated. This was part of the development of these temples and of these gods and bringing these gods together. And your question may be, why are you teaching about that? Why is that important? Because in my studies of this, I was studying during that 400-year period when Alexander the Great had come into Israel. And I was studying about what happened to Jerusalem during this time and to the priesthood during this time. And something very startling happens. There were older priests that were there, and there were also younger priests that was there in Jerusalem. And as Greek culture, and we're beginning to see it here, and now we're coming from the 6th, 7th century all the way down now to where we're about the 2nd century BC, right in the same time period as things begin to develop of Greek cultures. It's beginning to influence these temples in Rome, and simultaneously it's expanding into Israel now. And what happens in Israel during this season is that these younger priests, and it's recorded in the book of Maccabees, and it's also recorded in some other historical texts. But these younger priests became influenced by this new Greek culture. The Greeks had a place up in the Phoenician area that I showed you last week around Dor. There upon those shores, they had set up a stadium, and they began to do what we know today as the Olympics. It was literally the Olympics. They had Olympia. They worshiped the god of Olympia, and they would have these Greek games in these